Making these videos is very healing for me, talking about topics that I don't normally talk about on my daily life and I don't want to talk about on my daily life. Topics that are more uncomfortable, but that I feel called to talk about them here because I feel like it's good for me to express myself and this part of my path, and I know it can I know it can help some people too that are going through the same thing right now. And talking about these more uncomfortable topics, I don't think it's just healing. I think it's necessary, and I think it can really liberate us by talking about it. I consider myself a half full glass type of person that always try to look at the good side of things. And like talking about these topics, I it kind of put me more of like an uncomfortable state of being, but I think it's good to get the message out. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes we fall into the trap that we should just like not think about it, just think more positively and like kind of brush it off. But it's good to talk about it and not bypassing it because it's the reality of the world. And I think sometimes we need to talk about the more uncomfortable, the more like the dark side of things. I believe we need to talk about it and making it seen, and that way we can let it go so we don't have to hold on to it. Yeah, because I just don't think the solution is to just not think about it. And I love the quote by Carl Jung that says, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And I believe that when we experience darkness in the world, these are the wounded parts of ourselves that are calling us for our attention, like these parts of ourselves that want to be seen and want to be released. And we shouldn't be overly focused on the people specifically, because these are just different fractals of you that allows you to go through that darkness and therefore letting it go. They're just in a way assisting you in releasing and just overcoming, or in a better way to say it, alchemizing them. And we shouldn't try to villainize them or falling into a victim mindset. Sometimes we have these experiences through these people to learn how to say no, to become better at setting boundaries and letting it go, just walking away. And to me, it's very interesting because I've been experiencing this same type of energy just through different people. And I want to talk about two guys that I dated. One was right after I came out, and one was after like a year or a year and a half after. But it's the same type of energy because, like, if you don't heal something from that first experience, it would just reappear in your life. And to me, it's very clear. And I feel like it's only when we fully heal from that experience that we can go into the world, and that same energy won't have to reappear into our reality again and again. But yeah, I do believe that sometimes in life we go through the same experience or the same type of energy twice because we haven't fully healed from that first experience we had. Maybe, I mean, I can tell you from my case specifically, after I kind of dated, it's not even dating, it's more like situationship, but I didn't fully heal. I jumped into like that was the only time in my life that I fully like jumped from one person to the next one. And I didn't ever like fully heal from that first one. And a year from there, I attracted someone that, in my opinion, was even worse than that first guy that I dated. But yeah, I feel like that's how it is, just history repeating itself. If you don't make the unconscious conscious, it's just gonna keep driving your subconscious. And that same energy reappearing in our lives through different people, it's also one of the reasons why we feel attracted to that person. I feel like, in a way, our body knows that it's danger, and it's something familiar, something that we had experienced, and it's what, in a way, it's like that's part of the attraction. Why I feel like, in a way, our soul wants to go through that experience. Like, we feel the excitement, but it's through because we want to go through that to heal from it, to fully heal. That's why in life I feel like it's good to, if you want to do something and you feel excitement towards it, just go for it. You're gonna learn something from it, you're gonna heal something from it. And yeah, I feel like we should be curious about what we are excited about. And I feel like an ideal way to live life would be to follow that excitement, but also be detached from it, be be willing to be excited about it, but then be also okay of letting it go after. I feel like that would be a good approach in life. And just from the start, I know I'll probably use the word narcissist a lot in this video. And I just want to start by saying that, first of all, every single person have narcissistic qualities within them. And I don't wanna I don't wanna use that word a lot, but I know it by making this video I'm probably gonna use it a lot. But this word, the thing is that when someone, because I do feel related to the archetype of the empath. I do feel everyone's energy. I do feel like I just tend to, I feel like I fall more into the side that I feel my energy drained from people. And I just want to say that when you label yourself as the empath and the other person as the narcissist, even that is just like a narcissistic trait to, I mean, it has kind of like a superiority to say, I am the empath, that person is the narcissist. It already creates like a, I'm good, that person is bad. And I don't want to make this video, one of my intentions is to not make videos from separation. This person, it's just showing you parts of yourself that you need to overcome. It's only there for you to have lessons. But yeah, I don't want to make this video and kind of create this sense of separation, It's, to me, it's kind of talking about it and making it seen. And I know, like, and that's the thing, I know a lot of people go through this, and I don't want to bypass it. I don't want to just like, oh, I'm just not gonna talk about it. I don't want to protect it. I don't want to protect behaviors like this. We need to talk about it, and we need to be able to talk about it. But but yeah, I just from the start, I'm going to talk about the archetypes of the narcissist and the empath. But I don't wanna talk about it from a sense of separation. And yeah, I just wanna to leave that out there. When there is an attraction between the narcissist and the empath, because this happens a lot, is because both of them have aspects that they need to learn from each other. The empath needs to be better at setting boundaries and having a stronger frame, and the narcissist have a lesson of becoming more empathetic. That's the thing, the narcissist, they manipulate and control to get their needs met. But the empath also, the empath archetype usually is very people pleaser. It's usually overly nice to people so that they also can feel safe and they can get their needs met. It's just a different type of behavior, but At the same time, both of them are a type of manipulation. But yeah, just the people pleaser behavior. I was a very people pleaser, and it is a type of manipulation. It's not as bad as the narcissist that it's like has mind games and everything else, but it is a type of manipulation because you are being overly nice to people, or you are kind of abandoning yourself so that people can treat you better. And I was seeing in my life, in my past, how I was very people pleaser. And the thing is, like, it's not coming from an authentic place. It's not coming from a true you, you know? It's like you are being overly nice to people. And it's just, I don't know, it's not the real you. And that's the thing. The empath can feel other people's energies. And this usually comes from childhood because you grew up in like around adults that didn't know how to regulate themselves. And this was like a self-defense mechanism that you had to be hyper vigilant and be in tune of how everyone else feels in the room, you know? Just any danger, you have to be aware of that. And this is why empaths are hypersensitive. Empaths usually try to regulate the room and sometimes even overextending themselves to kind of switch the mood in the room, you know? Trying to make the environment feel lighter and the energy in the room feel better. So it feels better so that you don't have to feel those bad energies, you know? It's kind of like trying to control what is, you know, trying to change the mood in the room, you know? Kind of like this. I can definitely feel related to this. I definitely had, now not so much honestly, but I had this like resistance to bad energy. And sometimes things are just the way they are. Sometimes you just have to accept it. And yeah, I feel like sometimes and I feel like that's a type of manipulation also, like trying to make the room feel lighter, make the energy in the room feel better. And just like the narcissist, it's not in the same level, but it's also a type of manipulation because you're trying to find ways to feel safe, you know? I've never I've never tried to play mind games on people to kind of like question their reality or anything, but in a way it's still very like you're still operating from an unhealed part of yourself. You're trying to be a people pleaser so that people can treat you better, and like you're trying to manipulate the energy in the room so like the room feels lighter. So it's like it's different, but it's also a type of manipulation, and it's coming from a very wounded parts of yourself and part probably things that from your childhood. Every person processes trauma differently. Not every person that goes through a lot of trauma becomes a narcissist. Like everyone has their different ways to deal with traumas from their childhood. And this is why we need to become aware to not be operating from these unhealed parts of ourselves. And I personally know a lot of people that has been through a lot of narcissistic abuse, sometimes even currently, and they don't even know about it. But it's not your job to try to convince that person to leave that person or to try to change their mind. That's not your job, and it's probably not going to end up in a positive way, you know? But yeah, I do think it's important to speak about it, to not minimizing it and not bypassing it, to express it and tell your story, because I feel like a lot of people go through this, and the more we give awareness to it, the more we can start to make better decisions, you know? And I feel like this is why I think it's important for people to talk about it, because once you are still in that place, other people that has been through it and can tell you that it's okay if you leave them. It's okay if you decide better for yourself, even if it's hard, you know, even if it's a hard decision. And I feel like this is why it's important to for people to express that. We should talk about it. And I feel like, I mean, I got to the point where honestly my reputation was so ruined that I got to a point that now I can freely express myself. And I feel like sometimes we get to that such a low level like that, that then we feel free to tell our story, you know? And I feel like now I feel I have nothing else to lose, you know? Like I just need to tell my story, and I know it probably will help someone. And it's also, in those experiences also put you in a place that you become more detached of how you're gonna be perceived, you know? I feel like experiences like this really are a great lesson for you to learn to speak up, you know? But yeah, I want to talk about these two situationships that I had. One was right after I came out, and the other one was sometime after. And the very interesting thing about the second one is that I had already been in a place within myself that I already knew myself and I was comfortable within myself. I was feeling very vibrant. I was very feeling very me, you know? Because to be honest, on the first one, to me, even before I did psychedelics, YouTube, please don't take my video out. This is for educational purposes only. But I do think that like whenever you do psychedelics, it really makes you more aware, you know? And the first situationship that I had, this was before psychedelics, and I feel like it was already an awakening for me because it really transform you, you know, like it really makes you having to respect yourself. And the interesting thing is like the second one, this like second guy that I'm gonna talk about, the one that happened like the one that I'm gonna talk about, that it's like the same type of energy, gaslighting, mind games, manipulation, like controlling people, this same type of energy through a different person, you know? And I feel like we experience this in life because we haven't healed completely from that first experience. But the very interesting thing about this second guy is that the first one, this first guy already had like a terrible reputation. Everyone talked bad about him. He had like a horrible reputation. But the second one, he was very different in that way. He was very like friends with a lot of people, you know, very social, very, he didn't have like a bad reputation, you know? And that's the very interesting thing because everyone are in that environment, they talk really bad about the first one, which I'm not saying he wasn't awful, but the second one, like it was as bad as the first one, you know? And people don't talk about it, and that's the thing, many people can read between the lines. And I want to mention covert narcissist because there's people that are just experts at making themselves look in a certain way that they, I don't know how to explain it, but like this is the way that we need to use our discernment, you know? It's very important to just approach people with discernment, and not because someone has like a horrible reputation, it's all that it is, you know. There's people that have a lot of friends that are very like, how can I say this, like, to me personally, today I am very careful about the person that just knows everybody and that just wants to know everybody and that just wants to be connected with everybody, you know. It's also a tactic, and that's all that I'm gonna say. And not because someone is very well connected or friends with everybody, it means that they're a good person, you know? This is when we need to use our discernment. And the second guy that I'm going to talk about, this guy was the one after that first situationship that I had with the first guy. And the second guy, I met him in a New Year's, in a New Year's Eve party in Miami. And I remember at that event, I felt instant attraction to that guy. I felt super attracted. And that's the thing too, like if I have to admit, both of these guys, like the main thing was like the physical attraction. Like both of these guys are very good looking, you know. But yeah, I mean, it was at that moment it was very for superficial reasons. It was only physical, you know. And yeah, but yeah, so I met this guy and I didn't know that this guy was going to be the probably one of my biggest karmic lessons in my life. And I feel it's very important for me to say, because whenever you're meeting someone and you are starting this like phase of starting to see someone, this attraction you have for someone, I feel like you don't know this person, you don't know how they see the world, you don't know in what lenses they see the world from, you know? Because we all experience the world in different ways. And that's the thing. We should never, this is something to be aware of, because we should never like let this what they say about you, because like he was like talking badly about me to their friends, like first to their close friends and then their friends, and then like you start gaining like a bad reputation from them. But this is something to be aware of, because everything they say or do to you, this is all projection. This is their stuff. This is not your stuff, you know? And it's important to remind yourself that. And this is something that if I would have known this at that time, it would have saved me a lot of suffering. And I wouldn't have internalized all of this. And this is something you should be very aware of. These like manipulative games they play, you know? Like they would try to make you look in a certain way in the eyes of other people. It's very calculated, and I was able to see through him, you know. And this is the part, like this is the part that like once they know that you know about them, that's when you need to be very careful. This is something that it's very important to be aware of, because once he knew that I saw through him, then it became worse, you know. And even though I already set my boundaries and I decided to take a step back, just like everything, he would like, there are calculated games, you know. They would make you look a certain way. This is like the part that like discernment is very important, you know. You need to be aware of the games that they are playing, you know. Not because you don't operate this way means that other people are not operating this way. And it's, and how can I say this, like I don't like that I kind of know now how other people operate, but it really makes you more aware. And once you start feeling like something it's not right, that something feels off, and you feel it in your energy, and you feel it like, and you start to, you became very good at pattern recognition, you know. And sometimes you cannot see through them, because like they're gonna play a different person to you, and they're gonna be like super nice to you, but to their friends they're gonna, once you're around him but with other people, they're gonna treat you differently, you know. Because all I'm trying to say is that a lot of people play mind games, and they would try really hard to make you look a certain way in the eyes of other people, because that's how they operate. They are very worried about how they're going to be perceived, and they want to like people to see them in a specific way, and they want to like, you looking like this is very beneficial for them, for how they want to be perceived, you know. So you should be very mindful of this and try to not fall into their trap. Try to be as present as you can. And yeah, and once you see this, like try to have self-respect and not just tolerate this and take on these projections, you know. If you feel like something is off, speak it, you know. Talk about it. And I'm talking about this because I feel like at that time I was not as strong and as grounded within my own frame, you know. And I want other people that are going through the same things to be more how can I say this, to be more respected and to be more grounded within your truth. I don't want people to keep losing their power because of other people, because of these type of people, because it can create delays in our lives, because a lot of us are in our path and we are doing self-development and try to be better, and we're in our way of our elevation, and sometimes this stuff creates like delays in our lives. It takes us away from what we're kind of like hold us back. I want other people to avoid falling into this trap, because if you're grounded and if you respect ourselves, it's way harder for them to kind of like take you back from your elevation. And I do want to talk about a term that it's gaslighting. And I feel like today people just talk about gaslighting like if it's nothing, and you just hear in conversations, but I want to go to like deeper, and I want to tell a story about it, or probably multiple stories about it, because I want to go deep into the nature of gaslighting and how the person that it's like doing the gaslighting, I don't even know if most of them do it from like a conscious level. I feel like it is all happening in like a very unconscious level, but like that person is trying to make you question your reality. And sometimes people that try to gaslight you, they try to question your own reality so that you feel worse about yourself, or that you start to question yourself. And yeah, it's something, it can really affect you psychologically. I want to talk about one experience with this guy, that there was this pregame in someone's apartment, and there were all these people hanging out in the kitchen. And this guy called me to. I was kind of dating this guy. It was kind of like. It wasn't like dating. It was like situationship. But like he called me to go to the couch to talk to him. So we were sitting in the couch, and this guy asked me if I can post a picture that we took earlier that day. Earlier that day, we went to a museum, and it's just like a selfie that I took. And I didn't think it was like a nice picture. So I told him like, you can post it, but like I don't think it's a nice picture, but you can post it. I don't know, it was just one of those days. Those days that you just grab a t-shirt and like that t-shirt doesn't even like look good on you, but like you just wear it. But yeah, I just didn't feel like it was like a nice photo. And I also like didn't feel like I look good. But yeah, I told him like, yeah, you can post it. I don't think it's a good picture, but you can post it. And he tells me, okay, so show me a photo that you think you look good then. So I go to my gallery and I go and like I show him like, I think I look good here, here, here. I look good here. And he looks at me and he says, that's not what you look like, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, oh, you have a sense of self. And I was like, so I just stay there, like, kind of like digesting what was happening. And then he left and he was like, just don't think about it. And I don't know if that whole interaction was like him trying to do it on purpose, or what was it about. I don't know. It's just like super weird. I found that super weird, because like I didn't know if he wanted to like make me question how attractive I am. You know what I mean? Like it was just such a weird situation. And just like him like taking me to the couch to ask me this, and I don't know, it was just very weird. But yeah, I just remember I stayed in the couch like, what was that? This is what I mean, like this type of behavior that tries to question yourself and question your sense of how you see reality. It's insane. Like, but anyways, I want to mention another experience that I had with this guy, and this was a little after that pregame like experience. Um, but this was at a time that we already agreed that we wouldn't be together. But we were still kind of friends, and we also had friends in common. So we were like seeing each other, but more in like a, not too much in like a romantic kind of way. But Yeah, so it was like one Saturday, and I told him that I wanted to go to the park and if he wanted to come with me. And I feel like there were other people coming. And he told me that he was inviting me to like a kind of like a rooftop party. And he first invites me to his apartment. He told me, like, come to my apartment first. And the energy was like super off already. I went to his apartment and he like calls his friends. This is what I mean. Like, he tries to make you look crazy. He would try to make you look like the crazy one. And we were not together at that point, like, anymore. But he told me to come to his apartment, and he calls his friends, and he's like, "Oh, like Augusto is here," like that's me. And he's like, "Augusto is here," and like he was trying to prove to other people, make I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on in his mind. But like, he was calling his friends, and he was like, he's basically here. And then we went together to that pregame, and I'm telling you, like, I feel the energy of people, and I feel like I was feeling like such bad energy from people, like very like judgy, kind of like people being very dismissive to me. And I remember I felt so weird at that rooftop party. And one person comes to me and he's like, "So you two, what are you two? Like, are you guys together or like?" And I was like, "No, no, no, we're not together." And he was like, "Oh, that's healthy." But that's the thing. Like, it's hard to explain this type of behaviors, but like, this type of people would try to play games and try to create situations that would make you look like the crazy one. They would go out of their way to make you look like the crazy one. And once you become aware of this, you realize that there's people that do this. And there were other experiences like this, but like, these people always try to victimize themselves. And that's the thing I'm very aware of today, like how they would plan something like this, like scheme something to make you look a certain way. There's like, it's like, I don't know, people that operate really from their minds. But yeah, after this experience, this rooftop party experience, I remember I felt such weird energy, like bad energy from him. I promise you, like, this person, it's like probably one of the people in my life that I experienced the worst bad energy in my life. And like, I can feel when someone has like resentment towards you. Like, I can feel it in my body. And I remember that day after we already got tickets to a party, and it was, I mean, in like via text, I was feeling that like this guy had like something really, like a lot of anger towards me. And we go to this party on like Sunday, and to me, I was very uncomfortable. The night before, like after that rooftop party experience, I mean, I feel like your body knows when like a person, it's like doing this type of games to you, like your soul knows about it. And it's trying to warn you, your intuition, it's screaming to you like, beware. But anyways, I went to this party on Sunday, and I felt like the weird energy, and I like I bring up to the conversation. I bring this up to the conversation. That's the thing. It would always gaslight you. They would be like, everything's fine, like nothing's happening. Like, it's always like this, like nothing's happening, and that's not true. Like, nothing's happening. It's all in your head. Like, it's this gaslighting again. Like, they would gaslight you that like they would make you question that your intuition, it's not right. And that, like, you feel in the energy, you feel the passive aggressiveness, you feel the resentment, you feel the anger, you feel like even the jealousy sometimes. But these people don't expect these people to admit that they had this feeling towards you, like this like resentment towards you. They're never gonna admit that. So when someone gaslight you like this, just, it's a sign, man. It's a sign. Move on. Like, I mean, if I could just go back, I would just completely cut this person out of my life as soon as I can. And I feel like this is not like a uncommon situation. I feel like a lot of people in our lives, we all experience things like this. And it's very important to have self-respect and to remove people like this from our lives because it really dysregulates your nervous system. I remember these situations, they just put me in like a such a state of distress and like turmoil, you know? But like these people, this is the way they live. This is them 24/7, you know? This is what you need to understand. This is their life 24/7. This is all they know. And when you experience this, like just be aware you're not supposed to feel this way, you know? You're supposed to be at peace, you're supposed to feel regulated, you're supposed to feel good within yourself. And energy never lies. If someone tells you, if someone is being like giving you the facade or like the image that they're being nice to you, you can tell it in their energy if they're feeling resentful or if they're being passive aggressive, or if even if they tell you that everything's fine, it's all in your head, everything's perfect, I'm not mad at you, you feel it in their energy, you know? You feel it that that there's something else, you know? Energy doesn't lie. After these experiences, after me seeing through him, seeing through who he truly was, me seeing through his games, after all of this, I still didn't cut him out immediately. And I feel like, I mean, we had tickets to go to different events that summer. We had a lot of activities that we were going to do together. And sometimes, like, because we had like things that we're supposed to do with that person, kind of, it can restrict us from doing what we need to do, you know? Sometimes it's like putting our boundaries because like we know we're gonna go on a trip together later. We know we're going to do this together later. You know, sometimes the best thing is just not to go to that trip, even if you pay for the flights, even if you pay for the whatever, the hotel, whatever. It's choosing yourself, you know? But yeah, I had a lot of attachment to this guy, you know? And like in the beginning, I did felt a lot of love towards this guy. I'm gonna talk about later about this guy was going through like a health condition, and I truly, how can I say this, like there was no thing that I wanted more than him to get better. This time in my life, I wanted him to get better, like his health before anything else, you know? And I truly felt a lot of love for this guy. But at this point, like I was seeing through him, seeing through for what he truly was, you know? And I was very attached to this guy. And this is the part that we would need to be very careful, you know? We are around someone that is gaslighting us, that it's giving us a reputation that we're crazy. He would always say, for example, are you on acid right now? You know, because I did acid sometimes. But like he would like make these jokes like, are you on acid right now? Like, and they would always find ways to make you look like the crazy one. So that way they don't have to take accountability for any of their actions, you know? They don't need to look at their shadow. It's like it's convenient for them, you know? And they want you to question your intuition, you know? Always listen to your intuition. Always listen to what it's telling you. It's your guide. And you need to be very aware with this. They would make you question everything about yourself. And they would even twist the story. And it's also very important to know that we are also, whenever we have someone like that in our life, we are also absorbing that energy, you know? People that you have around do have an impact on your energetic field, you know? I want to put a video here that explains how we absorb other people's energy, you know?
When you meet people, there is a frequency balance between the two electromagnetic fields. So let's say you're vibrating very high and the person you meet is vibrating very low. There is a frequency balancing of this. So your frequency who's very high will fall and the frequency who's very low will rise to counteract and balance this frequency. So with that being said, people are stealing your energy. This is why you need to be very careful of the people who are in your surroundings, because these fields carry their emotions, their minds, their thoughts, and these fields pass on all of this energy into you. You see, these fields are manifestations of their internal state. So be careful of who is around you.
We need to be very selective of who we have around. it really affects our energetic field. We need to have energetic hygiene, protecting our energy. And if it feels off, it's off. I feel like every single person is psychic, but not just everyone can access this part of themselves because they don't believe that they can. Everyone is able to access their inner guidance, their intuition. It's just that you need to create a relationship with it, you know? You need to start to listen to it. But I feel like just since people are not listening to their intuition, they are feeling disconnected from them. And this part of themselves that are trying to guide you, that works as a inner guidance, as a guide. And what a lot of people don't talk about is that when we think about someone, we send them energy. And it is true, like a lot of things happen on a metaphysical level, you know. And it's true that you are absorbing another person's negative energy, you know. Whenever we think of someone, we're sending them energy, you know. And if we add a very powerful emotion of resentment and anger and just jealousy, we're sending that energy to that person, you know. And I want to talk later about evil eye and what evil eye is to me. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people are not aware of this, their inner state of being, and how it is affecting other people, their own stuff that they don't want to look at, you know. And you are absorbing other people's energies, you know. I mean, I feel like I am a little bit like a sponge, you know. Like I feel like I am very porous. I feel like I am very porous, you know? Like I go to a place and but I feel like it's everybody that we're just very interconnected to each other, you know? And even if the person is not next to you or even in the same country, they can still send you energy when they think of you. I mean, I had experiences that being with certain people and certain in certain spaces that it took me days to recover myself energetically. But now I am very grateful of my ability to read energy like this because it is like a compass, you know. Your intuition, it's telling you what's for you and what's not for you. And once you know how to use this tool wisely, it's amazing. It's a guide. And once you become more conscious about this, you realize that a lot of stuff are happening in the unseen, you know. It's not everything it's like it is, you know. Like we live in this reality, but this is like the physical reality, but there's a lot of stuff happening in the unseen, you know. And this is why when we develop our intuition and we become more energetically aware, we start to understand this, you know, that like not because someone says these words, that's what it means, you know. We become better at reading energy instead of just trusting blindly of what someone is saying. And I do believe that this is just part of my journey and that a lot of people go through similar experiences in their own journeys and that they encounter this very similar type of people and very similar energies that I am talking about because we need to learn from this, you know. And this past year I have met a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of, but like some people in the spiritual community. And by spiritual community, please don't think that it's like religious. Whenever I mean like spiritually devoted, I don't associate myself a lot with religious people, by the way. And I just wanted to like leave that out there. But just like people that are walking their paths and they been through the same type of kind of narcissistic abuse in a way, you know. All of these experiences are for you to get to know yourself in a deeper way. But I do believe that there is a lot to learn about all of this. To me, this was a huge lesson to detach, to let go. Because if you don't, you're only gonna experience this escalating. This person talking about you, assumptions, gossip, projections, and spreading like a virus. But I do believe that the main reason this guy did all of this was because he hated the fact that I saw through him, saw his darkness that he didn't want to look at. And he chose to instead victimize himself. And I honestly don't even know if people like this do it on if they do it like consciously or if they do it in an unconscious level. But yeah, I found all of this so weird. Like he would say all of this stuff about me, but at the same time, he would have me on his Instagram close friends, you know? And also, evil will accuse you of what it's doing. Later, he started saying that I, like me, and the first guy that I dated or had like a situationship with, that we were basically the same person. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing. Once you see through their game, it becomes very obvious. Even though like 95% of people, like they have no awareness of it because most people cannot see through people like this, you know? Most people are oblivious to like these behaviors and like the very core or like the character of someone. And with this situation, after it escalated so much and with all of it, I found myself falling into different parts of how I approached this situation, you know. I saw myself being like extremely compassionate, like to one extreme, like extremely compassionate to this person, and even being like, I, I mean, this is a shadow part of myself also, like completely abandoning myself, and it's like, kind of like, oh, this person probably has been through so much trauma, even trying to understand their behaviors, which you should never try to understand their behaviors. It would not make sense. But like me falling into this complete like extreme and being like kind of like me sacrificing myself to taking on their karma, you know, there's like a shadow part of myself that hopefully I heal completely now. But this part of myself that it's kind of like self-sacrifice and kind of like, I don't even know, but sometimes in the other extreme, kind of like, this is the worst person in the world, like kind of even making me lose faith for humanity, you know? You know those type of people that you meet and it's like, do people even have light in them? Because I know he does. Like deep down, I'm sure there's a place that he's good, you know? But yeah, I found myself falling into these like different points regarding this situation. But don't ever fall into the trap that trying to understand why they did the things that they did. I do believe that it's rooted in deep insecurity and deep discomfort within oneself. That competitiveness and comparison that they don't want their friends to like you more than they like them. Trying to humble you and trying to make you feel small and trying to make you shrink yourself so that they can feel better about themselves. But don't ever try to understand their reasons. It would not make sense. And to me, he was a great lesson about spiritual integrity and how I mentioned how whenever I met him, he was sick in a way. I mean, he had a condition. And I remember I wanted so bad for him to get better. And I would send him like Joe Dispenza videos about overcoming yourself and like I really wanted him to get better. And like I was like sending them all these things and even like intentionally like really wanting him to get better, you know? Like how can I say this? Like I truly wanted to like manifest him getting better and he did at one point. Like he really did. Like a few months after I remember he had like a surgery and he got better. That's the thing. Like it's coming from like good intentions, but you should never abandon yourself for others in a way. Like how can I say this? Like you shouldn't try to take on someone else's karma. And to me, like yes, like you should always like wish people for the best, but like but yeah, but later I realized this person was really not the person I thought he was, you know. And we shouldn't pour so much of our energy into someone else if that is not being reciprocated, you know. We're abandoning ourselves. I would go to parties and I would be always like, oh, I want to make him feel better, you know. But like we shouldn't pour so much and give so much if it's not reciprocated. Sometimes they're not even valuing us, you know. But yeah, I think in a way with my intention I really wanted him to get better and to get well. And I was surprised when he did and like I was super happy. And whenever I say it like this, I don't mean like manifesting like pen and paper because I really, again, I would always say it like you should manifest things for you, like set your intentions, write your manifestations, but you should never write for someone else. You can say like I wish them well, like max that, like maximum. But like I believe that one should never get in the way of someone else's karma. You should journal. You should, how can I say this? Like set intentions for you for your own life. But like other people's lives, you should never do anything about it. But yeah, like spiritual integrity, I mean, like my intention was like only for like this guy to get better. Like it was like coming from a good place, but like sometimes it's like we all have our own karma, we all have our own karma, and there's things and if you take on other people's karma, you're gonna, all I'm saying is like you shouldn't take on other people's karma. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, whenever I wish this for him, it really comes from like unconditional love, and that's a really good thing. But I believe that it just can be, how can I say this? Like I feel like there's so much happening in an energetic level, and we should feel like unconditional love, but it needs to come with boundaries. This is why we need to find balance in like, I feel like sometimes people that are starting their spiritual awakening, they it's like they experience this like unity consciousness, like we're all one, and y- everyone is you and you are everyone. And yes, like it's a really good part of you, like this unconditional love, but at the same time you need boundaries, you know like later I realized that even like me wishing the best for them, and like me, you shouldn't even try to like send them good energy to like these people that did you wrong. The best way is to detach completely energetically. And yeah, like this is what I mean by spiritual integrity. Even at times whenever I was like protecting him, and by protecting him, I mean when people would ask me like, how are you and him, and like every like all of this, so I would say stuff like, oh yeah, he's great, like he's great, not saying anything else. But like at the same time that I was like protecting him, like saying all of this, like, oh yeah, 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 he's great, like I would just like brush it off, not saying anything. I told only a few people, like very few people, at the same time that I was like saying, like when people ask me about him, because like people were hearing apparently like horrible things that he was saying. I would say like, oh yeah, 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 he's great, and apparently he was like saying all this stuff that I only wanted to be with him to just all of his friends, and I just wanted to be with him to just get married and get the visa. He was saying all this stuff, and at the same time that he was saying all this bad stuff about me, he would have me on his close friends on Instagram. So that's what I mean. I'm saying all of this so that it's good to not just blindly trust someone just because they make you seem like you're in a good relationship or like connection with them, but like just use your intuition. That's all I'm saying. And you cannot save anyone. People can only save themselves. And after healing, I thankfully released this savior complex behavior that I used to have, like trying to fix people. And like, because this happened to me with the first one and the second one, that I was like, I'm gonna fix them, like I'm gonna fix this person. And it's like, even like me saying it, it's like such a shadow aspect of myself, past shadow aspect of myself, because you do this to so that you can feel worthy. And whenever I said that about unconditional love, all I'm saying is, I mean, it's good to give love, and but all I'm saying is like just be mindful of where you're putting your attention to, because where you put your attention to, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. And I was giving to my attention to not like the best people that I could give my attention to. It's all that I'm saying. But you should never feel regret giving love to someone, because even if it's not reciprocated, in a way it's gonna come back to you in a way, you know. Everything you give is it's coming back to you, you know. But yeah, I don't regret that. I am happy that I saw them in a good light in the beginning, you know. Like I feel like this happens to me a lot. Like first see people in a good light, and then they keep showing me that they are not the way that I saw them as, you know. But yeah, it's a good lesson. I feel like it's also important to just be mindful of who you're giving your time, who you're giving your energy. And yeah, like I remember we were in an Uber coming from a party in Brooklyn, and we were in the car just talking, me, him, and there were other like two more friends. And we were going from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and they were just gonna drop us in our apartments. And I was telling the story. I was telling this like very, how can I say this, like this like very personal story of how in high school basically I kind of, it's kind of like a, it was not like coming out because I did not come out immediately after that. But there was this girl that, there was this experience, and I'm gonna make another video about it later. But yeah, basically in the Uber, whenever we were going back home, and we were also like high, you know, and I was telling this like very descriptive story of how my classmate in high school found that I had a lot of naked photos of guys, you know, because one night before that happened, I was like looking in my phone and saving like this like black and white naked photos of men, you know, and it was like photography. It was like, it wasn't like very sexual, but it was like photography and just these guys like in black and white naked. But but yeah, I was like telling this story and I mentioned that, and he was like, because I said like like black and white naked photos, like photography. While I was telling my story, he was like, "You don't have to sugarcoat it, you know." And I was like I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but that's the thing. People like this are projecting onto you. Like in their minds, that's how they operate, you know. They need to sugarcoat one experience because that makes them look better to other people. You know, I was just telling my story. I was just telling exactly how it is, you know. I was describing the story. And yeah, like this guy was like, you don't need to sugarcoat it, you know? That's projections. That's there, you know, like that's their stuff, you know? You don't need to internalize it. And I was like, I'm not sugarcoating it, you know? Like I'm just telling the story as it is, you know? But yeah, like people like this, just be careful. Just be mindful that this is just how they see the world, you know? That this is how they operate and how they approach life, you know, always having to like thinking of how they're gonna be perceived, you know. But yeah, I noticed a lot of red flags about this guy that it just helped me to become more aware of it. There are many things, for example, like if someone is very warm to you and very nice to you whenever it's just you two, but whenever it's like with their group of friends, they treat you differently. That says a lot about them, you know, that they are only like giving you and like giving you like being kind of, how can I say, I don't even know how to say it, but like being like meaner to you whenever they're with other people. It really says a lot. Kind of like if he's like making a facade whenever he's with his friends, and whenever he's with me also, like only with me, because like he's being overly nice or he's being overly like kind of like mean, you know. But yeah, and also like I feel like another thing is like you can tell you can tell a lot about one person how they really feel about you based on their friends, you know. If their friends give you like weird comments and like he's playing like two games, you know, and he's playing with you like with their friends, they're he's telling him stuff, and then with you he's only telling you so much. It's like stuff that you need to be aware of. Being warm with you, like being warm and nice to you whenever it's just you two, but being more like cold and distant whenever it's like more people, you know, or whenever he's with his friends. And yeah, you should be aware of this. And they kind of like give you this like type of like dismissive energy whenever he's with his friends. And it's crazy, but whenever I was with him, anytime someone would ask about our relationship, he would be like, let's not talk about it. And the thing I realized later is that it wasn't convenient for him because he was telling other people a completely different story. And he would only allow me to express myself only whenever I was with him. Whenever we were around other people, if they could hear it, he would not allow me to express how I really feel, you know? Another huge red flag that I saw on him, that I also saw on different people, is people that are very possessive with their friends. And he would, for example, he would say stuff like, I introduce you to my friends, you know? Like this feeling that like kind of they were my friends and I introduced you to my friends, you know? It's a very possessive way of looking at people. And but yeah, another red flag that I notice of not just him but like in different people is that if your friends or the friends of the guy you are seeing, if they give you weird energy, if they are kind of like dismissive to you and like they say stuff that like just those subtle comments and that they kind of know something that you're like you don't know about, it's because they are not painting you in the best way. That's like the reality. So if you see this weird energy between their friends, but like they are giving you like a nice facade, in reality, he's just talking badly behind your back. These are just the details that I pay attention when could be a friend or the guy you're seeing when they are not talking nicely about you behind your back, you know? They are hearing a side of the story that doesn't look good on you. And again, this is not to be paranoid or anything. It's just to not ignore the things you're seeing. Like after having these experiences, you become really good at pattern recognition. Like in a situation when people are acting the same way that it's been done before, you're like, been there, done that, you know, and like you can move on. But yeah, I also remember a time where we were having a pregame at my apartment and he came and I was mentioning how I just watched the documentary Depp versus Heard, which is like the Johnny Depp and the Amber Heard documentary. And it was like the documentary that I've seen, it was very, it seemed like both parties were very manipulative. Well, that was at least the documentary that I've seen. And I just mentioned, and he was there too, but I was not talking about him specifically, you know? I wouldn't like do that. I was talking about this documentary with some people, and he was there too. And I just said that the scary part about this documentary is that there is a lot of people like this, and especially in cities like New York, like there's a lot of people like this. And he comes up and says like, "You don't know what you're talking about." And he kind of like told himself off, you know? I was not even talking about him specifically, you know? And I'm telling you, that day I was doing acid for, we were going to a party after. Every time I was around this guy, I would feel a certain type of anxiety. A type of anxiety how can I say this? It was very distinctive from this specific person. It was like a very strong type of anxiety. And I cannot help but wonder, what if there's people that like live in like high extreme anxiety? Like what if everything about them is just self-protection and everything is like, okay, I'm gonna put more walls, more walls, more walls, more walls, and you keep like feeding this monster, you know? That's the thing, like, and I don't think, and I don't even think it's like this person's fault, you know? Like, and this is why we need to heal our subconscious belief. If you believe that you're a bad person, you need to heal that, you know? Otherwise, you're gonna create that. And that's what I mean. I don't think there's good or bad people. I feel just looking like a big picture, I don't think there's bad people. I think there's just really unhealed people, you know, like that are operating, living their lives 24/7 from a very wounded, hurt place, you know? I do believe in that. But yeah, but I feel like this comes from like people being super defensive, you know? And the thing is like, I don't know with most people, but I think this guy, he definitely had an awareness of his shadow, I think. And yeah, I don't know if it was like he trying to protect himself or anything, because I'm also like not the kind of person that I would try to expose them, you know, like even though I saw dark parts of him. And that's the thing, like he he didn't think twice about ruin my reputation and like giving me like portraying me as this like horrible person. And this is why I mean like this is why I'm making this video. It's like I have nothing to lose, you know. I really have nothing to lose, and like whenever I tell these stories, I know it's gonna help someone. And yeah, it's just be very careful with who you surround yourself with, and like very competitive people, because like now if you pay attention you can instantly know if someone kind of operates this way in like comparison. And there's things that are for me hard to talk about, but like this guy and the first guy that I'm talking about, these two guys that I'm telling you, is like same energy, just different people. They also try to like body shame, you know, like try to make you feel insecure about your own body in different ways. But yeah, I don't want to get too much into that now, but yeah, I mean I'm talking about like extreme competitiveness. And it's obviously like this doesn't come from confidence. Like confident people, they don't do this. This is rooted in insecurity, you know, like deep insecurity. And I feel like just knowing this help us to have a little more compassion for people like this and step back, walk away, but still have compassion. And that's the thing. I was only like around these two, like in these two situationships just for like a few months, like max 4 months. There's people that are years, decades in their lives in toxic relationships with like very narcissistic people, and it becomes their normal, you know, this constant state of distress and turmoil, and just like this living life dysregulated, that becomes your normal. But like I always say, there's always a way to walk away, no matter if you're married to that person, if you have kids with them, if you're depending financially on them. There's always a way you can get out of there, no matter how bad it looks in the moment, no matter how hopeless it looks, like no matter if it looks like you have no escape. There is always a way. You don't have to be a slave of someone else's control. You can always get out of there. And that's the thing. With gaslighting, you should be very careful. I remember feeling anxiety every time I was with this guy, and being in this constant state of distress every time I was gonna be in this environment. And this guy tried to make me feel like gaslight me that I was the one with anxiety, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong, like after being in this group of people, and like I end up living in New York in such a state of social anxiety, and I was like, the only way I could continue was to heal myself, you know? But I talk about it in a different video. I'm not gonna get too much into that here, but yeah, that's the thing. Like he would, I remember he like tried to convince me that I was the one being anxious. And like, I mean, he did that to another person too, but it's be very aware of, and also not just aware, be very grounded within yourself. Know your truth, know who you are, and like that's just projection, and leave it there. That's their stuff. Don't take on those projections. And that's the thing. Once you become really aware of your inner state of being, and you take care of yourself, and you watch out for what you're consuming for your subconscious, you're kind of keeping a like energetic hygiene. The thing is that these people, they live out of gossip. They are, not to judge, like how can I say this, like not to judge their decisions, but it's like you are going to be affected if you're surrounded yourself with someone that it's in this constant like state of distress, and like mess with other people, and like in this always involved in drama, always in gossip. You are going to be affected if you're surrounding yourself with people like this all the time. Just like the video that I show, it's very important not to be absorbing just people's bad energies just because, I don't know, maybe because sometimes we are not brave enough to say no or set boundaries or respect ourselves. This to me was a huge lesson for me because after I knew I needed to tell him that like we should just stay friends, I was like, let's just be friends, and I gave him my reasons and everything. And I had this strong feeling that I needed to distance myself from him. Like I knew it. I knew I needed to distance myself. But I didn't, you know? We just became friends and we started hanging out again, and like, yeah, you need to listen to your intuition. Even if it's like a hard decision, it's the best decision to make. I didn't explain myself to anyone in that city. I just I knew I had like a horrible reputation after, and I just decided to leave that city. I didn't explain myself. I didn't say anything. I just left. I chose my peace and left. And I know he probably thinks that like that's power, like him winning, like, oh, I end up like as the good one, you know, because he was the one who basically controlled the narrative, you know. He put effort in it. And that's the thing. All these people that you thought were your friends but took his side and like did all this to you, like, you know what? Like, people that automatically believes everything that person said and doesn't even question it, if they believe the first thing they heard about you, like that's what they thought about you in the first place, you know? All the people that you lose when you find your truth, those are not the real ones. And I think the best way is to walk away and not over explain yourself to anyone. Let people believe whatever they want to believe about you. That's the thing. Sometimes it takes one person to ruin your reputation, you know? It kind of like based on assumptions and gossip, it kind of spreads like a virus, and all these people to change their perceptions about you. This experience escalated so much, and all these people were treating me like dismissing me as if I was like fake, you know? And then I started to struggle with like my mental health and everything, and I it's hard for me to admit it, but I feel everything. And I was feeling how people were happy of seeing me struggling, you know? And it was so clear. And that's the thing, I live my life trying to do the least amount of damage as I can. So why would you try to hurt me, you know? But yeah, I also believe that like people are just gonna feel triggered by you just being you. To me, it became very clear that just my existence was triggering for some people. All those voices that I was hearing from people, how I was fake, how I was a broken record, how all those comments that later gave me body dysmorphia, and all those things that like we shouldn't listen to any of that. Those like comments based on gossip, assumption, you shouldn't listen to any of that. And they just keep escalating. And that's the thing. At that point, I was really speaking up about all of these behaviors. And people don't like whenever you're speaking up about a topic, you know? Yeah, all these comments that I had, like internalized homophobia, how I was actually insecure, and then it escalated. And that's the thing, people then started saying that I was actually a Republican, that I was a racist, that I was just started escalating so much, that I was the narcissist, that I was actually like an energy vampire. And that's the thing, evil will always accuse you of what it's doing. Because of some of the mistakes I made in the past, there are some rules that I follow 100%. One of them is that if I, like, for example, no matter what, I do not make out or kiss someone that I have been involved romantically with if I do not plan on date them again, you know, because it only creates more confusion for them, and I don't know, it's like not necessary at all, you know? It doesn't matter if the other person is good looking, it doesn't matter if like they're just, to me it's like the best just not to do it, you know? Or if someone that you have been romantically involved with, if they tell you that they miss you, I do not I used to respond, I miss you too, you know? Like even though I didn't miss them, you know? Just because like I mean that's the people pleaser in me. But like even if someone tells you that they miss you, you don't have to repeat the same thing, you know? It doesn't matter if it's rude. I don't do it anymore. I don't just say like I miss you too or I miss you just because they said it, you know? Because that creates more, I don't know, like that they start believing that you want to have something again, you know? So, like, but yeah, those are some of the rules that I follow now. Experiences also made you very aware of your own shadow. And there was some shadow aspects of myself that I was able to see them consistently again and again and again. For example, one of them it's that I used to not speak up when something really bothers me, you know? And that's the thing. It's either you speak up and you try to communicate what's bothering you or you cut them out, you know? Because I feel like anything that happens after, it's your fault too, you know? Because you were too afraid of communicating it or you had all this resistance of like giving your opinion about it, you know? But yeah, there's some things about like people from my past, for example, that they did stuff that I'm not gonna sit them down and explain them what they did, you know, like I'm not gonna sit them down and explain like, oh, I think you're very manipulative, you know. I think you're I don't know, there's stuff that like for example, like to a narcissist, you cannot tell them like you cannot sit them down and explain them like, hey, by the way, I think you're a narcissist. You know, like it's you cannot do that, you know, but like at the same time, you cannot just have them around, you know, pretend like you're okay with everything and like either speak up about it and communicate it or cut them out. And at that point in my life, I was still like I had people around me that I was kind of like, you know, I was like seeing all this stuff, but like still I was having them around, you know, and I was not speaking up completely about how I was feeling, you know, and that is a shadow part, and that's on me, you know. And that's the thing too, like situations like that, like cutting people out like that, do not tend to be very easy in situations where you kind of go to the same environments. Like it's usually not that easy because I try to explain someone why their actions are wrong, you know, but like we're talking about people that are living in a victim mentality. They are not gonna take any accountability for their actions and they look at life like they are the victim in everything. So like it doesn't matter if you speak, if you give your arguments, they're not gonna see it. There's some people that they will never understand what they did was wrong, you know? Instead, they were only gonna try to destroy you as a defense mechanism. But yeah, at that time I was very people pleaser and I was not saying how I really felt and what bothered me, you know, because I was afraid to lean into tension, to start confrontation or to make people uncomfortable. And this is like a shadow aspect of my past, you know. Another realization I had about myself is that I had so much resistance towards negativity and negative people. I remember going to a space and be like, oh, bad vibes, no, or like bad energy, no, you know. And yeah, like trying to like always trying to uplift the energy in the room and trying to control it, you know. But it's like a resistance towards negative energy and like negative people and people that are more in like the lower frequencies. And it's also like a kind of trying to control the environment. And sometimes you just have to let people be, letting things be and environments be as they are and not trying to control it. And obviously, whatever happens to us as adults, it's always coming from what happened to us during childhood. And I mean, I've experienced the same thing in whenever I was a kid, you know? Like I grew up in an environment, in like a family environment with like my uncles and like just like a family dynamic that I never felt safe. I've always had to be hyper vigilant of like the adults around, you know? Because like to be honest, most adults are do not how to regulate themselves. And kids like the children absorb everything about the adults around. But yeah, being around controlling people and not just being in tune of how everyone else was feeling so for survival, but also me for example, I had a very verbally abusive uncle. And this uncle used to bully me so much. I was like little and like the adults around them, like I only remember one aunt that she used to defend me, but the rest, like no one ever defended me, you know? But that's the thing. Once, like everything that happens to you as adults, like you having to come across again through the same type of energies, it's all coming from childhood. It's all coming from like those early ages. And I feel like sometimes we're even healing stuff from like past lives, you know? So so that's the thing. I feel like the people we encounter later in life as adults are just like the same energies that we need to heal from like our younger ages. That's how I see it. But yeah, this thing about my uncle that used to bully me, like to me today, it's really hard for me to take it personally. He used to tell my cousins and everyone that he used to bully me because he was protecting me because the reason he was bullying me was that I didn't like become gay later. Like he used to bully me because of my sexuality. Because you always know when a kid is different, you know? You always know. But to me it's so funny because like I mean I'm still gay, you know? Like like the bullying didn't change anything, you know? I still like man a lot. So and it's hard for me to take it personally because I feel like once you know that that person was in a really bad place within themselves, like imagine being an adult and having to bully a kid, you know? Like but yeah, I grew up in that environment and I remember yeah, I mean, it's not just that you're in an environment with adults that don't know how to regulate themselves, but also you're not in an environment that you feel safe, you know? And I do like I always remember this aunt. Today she's like very religious today. I don't think yeah, she changed a lot today, but she used to really defend me and that's she was the only one of the from all the adults that used to take my side, you know? Because like as a kid you cannot defend yourself from like a big like angry adult, you know? But yeah, I do feel like situations like that affects us in our subconscious so much that later it brings up the same situations again, you know, like situations of not feeling safe or of attracting narcissistic people. Like everything happens from those early ages. That's why therapists always ask you like the root cause of it, you know, like your how was your childhood, how was your family, like that's where everything starts, you know. And but yeah, I believe this is why I was keep attracting this type of situations in high school, in college, living in New York, like even in my adult life, you know. But yeah, these things happening again, it's like an opportunity for us to break free from all of it. If you attract narcissists as an adult, it's because it might feel familiar, you know. And our lesson as an adult is to say no, to set boundaries, and to respect ourselves, to choose better this time, you know? To stop feeding your energy and focus to the narcissist. Not to try and fix them, not to tolerate them, not to love them, but to choose better, to leave, to walk away. To give that love to yourself instead. But yeah, sometimes we normalize these negative energies and negativity and having this narcissist in our lives, and it's from childhood. And it's usually when we heal that we decide that we want better for ourselves. We start to realize how good it feels to have like a good inner state of being and feeling good and regulated within yourself, that you stop tolerating this type of energies because you realize how much it affects you on your day-to-day life and just on your well-being, you know, like this history repeating itself. But yeah, these situations with this same type of energies, this first guy and then the second one, and like the thing with the second one is that it became so bad with because like so many people, like how can I say this, like it started escalating so much that I feel like sometimes we need to get burned to learn not to touch the stove, you know. We need to I truly feel that if it didn't escalate it like that bad, I wouldn't learn my lesson, you know? And I would keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I think it had to become so intense that I learned my lesson. And this is why I believe it's very dangerous to be out in the world with so much empathy but no boundaries, you know? We need to protect our energy. We need to have energetic hygiene with the people we are around. I mean with choosing better, you know? With choosing better people to have around. And if like we are surrounded by people that just are not supportive for us, we need to take our time and just be alone for a while, you know? But yeah, I also want to talk about this book called Reality Transurfing by Badim Seland. And this book talk about this concept of pendulums, which it's like the more energy people put in one thing, the more the pendulum swings, you know? Like the more we focus our energy on something, the more we're feeding our energy to that thing, you know? Not all pendulum not all pendulums are bad, but they have they generally have this destructive quality because they kind of take the energy from people, you know? And in this book, they talk about energy vampires and how energy vampires, they're actually destructive pendulums. And I made an entire video about pendulums from reality transurfing because I think it's a concept that explains, I mean, this book explains so well the concept of pendulums. And once you start to understanding this, you become much more aware of what you're feeding your energy to, you know? You're always going to feed your energy to some pendulums, but you can choose wisely, you know? You can choose what to feed your energy to for your own self-development. But yeah, this book talks about energy vampires, and that's the thing. A lot of us can draw energy from within, from source, but energy vampires, they exist and they need to get their energy from other people, you know? We get the energy from ourselves, from within. But the energy vampires, they need to get from other people, you know? That's their source. And maybe most of them don't even do it consciously. But that's the thing. Energy vampires, they need to dysregulate you to put you in a lower frequency so then they can like kind of put you in a state of dysregulated nervous system, you know, like in a state of turmoil because they need to throw you off balance basically. But yeah, when a person is under the influence of a destructive pendulum, if they're lucky, if that person is lucky, they can find a place within the system and make a home there. The person gives their energy to the pendulum, which in return, the pendulum provides an environment for them. But if the person rebels against the rules of the structure, their frequency cannot be in harmony anymore with the resonant frequency of the pendulum. And the pendulum being deprived of its essential energy, the pendulum either takes that person out of their system or destroy them. This is what the book says. And the best way to protect yourself from a pendulum is by being empty. This is why it's so important to heal yourself. To not carry any need for external validation, fear of abandonment, whatever it is for you, to become empty. When you clear up the gunk, you become empty. In the good sense of the word. And this doesn't mean to become cold. To me, it's quite the opposite. I feel like to become empty, it's actually, you don't carry all that stuff anymore, those unhealed parts of yourself. And you don't confuse attachment with love anymore. This strong feeling of needing to be with someone, confusing that that's love, but it's actually just attachment. And it's these unhealed parts of yourself that need to be validated. And if someone is getting to you, the best way to react to provocation is to ignore them completely, to stop feeding your energy to them. When you get into a conflict with someone or hate them in a passive silence, this is also like you're also giving them your energy. You need to stop giving them your energy to erase them from your mind completely, to do your best to stop thinking about them. We all have access to life force energy if we are willing to receive it. But a person that is so attuned with the lower frequencies and not giving their own focus and attention to themselves, they are disconnecting from the life force energy that we have. And this is why energy vampires need to get their source from other people, because they cannot get this life force energy from themselves. And this is why it's so important for you to have energetic hygiene and protect your energy and not leaking your energy so much. And this is why narcissists wants to keep you in a state of distress and anxiety, because they usually do things that are so that they want to keep you in your thoughts, but like they want to keep you in a lower frequency, getting you off balance so that you give them energy to them. This is why, like, I don't know if like people that have been in relationships with narcissists, it's such a state of turmoil that that's all they think about. And they are feeding all their energy to them. They put them in a state of like they want to get you off balance. And this is why people that are around a narcissist or in a group with so much drama, they tend to feel so drained, because this is different than how they actually feel always. You know how it is to feel good within yourself. You know how it is to feel fulfilled, with life force energy. So whenever you start feeling so drained, you know the difference. And this is exactly why people say, don't give them your power. Don't give them your focus to the narcissist. Like, put that power back to yourself. And I do think that a lot of this is actually happening in the unseen that we cannot see. I used to think that being an empath and just feeling all the energies and absorbing so much and feeling the energy in the room was a curse. But today I believe that it is such a blessing. It can be overwhelming at times, but I do believe it's a great guide that guides you and tells you, like, not here, not there, here. And I became much more energetically aware after I had a big psychedelic trip back in 2023. And even though it's like very, I don't know, like you feel the inner change that you become much more sensitive. And yeah, I thought I went too far, but I don't think I regret anything, because you just know what's good for you and what's not for you. But yeah, the deeper you think about it, the more you try to overcome yourself, and the more you try to elevate yourself, the more you're feeling like forces pulling you down. Like dark forces that pull you down exist. And this is why whenever you really want to like elevate and choose better for yourself and choose better for everyone, like you elevating is not only beneficial for you, it's beneficial for everyone. And this is why I think there's like what was that rule? There's like an equal opposite reaction. I don't remember that rule, but basically once you start to choose better and like choose to elevate yourself and choose the light, the dark is gonna try to pull you down. This is why I find it so interesting that all these things that we experience as these situations is actually like there's much more happening in the unseen. And this is why it's so interesting being an empath. It's to remember what is true and unseen. That humans can only perceive a certain percentage of reality. That there is so much more that doesn't meet the eye. That not everything is what it looks like. That there is light and dark, an entirely spiritual warfare happening in the unseen. And I believe the entire humanity, we are in the process of deprogramming ourselves from all of this. And maybe the first step is to choose better for yourself. Maybe you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you have to decide to walk away. That no one can make that decision for you. But no matter if it feels really hopeless or that there is no way out, there is always a way. And this is not to judge, it's to accept that person and not trying to change them, but deciding better for yourself. Know you deserve better than that. Because everything you are experiencing on the exterior is just a reflection of those wounded parts of yourselves that need to be seen and healed. Otherwise, this 3D reality will keep bringing you situations like this from your subconscious. And our job here is to become aware of this and choose better for ourselves. Leave it in the comments if you experience a situation similar than this. Consider to like and subscribe for more. We'd love to have you around. And keep it up. Peace.